Let's talk about a big structural problem with AI industry, which people are not realizing yet, but I think it's about to get really bad. And as an example, I'm going to talk about the Gemini 3.1 Pro preview model release from Google. So within hours, developers were getting no capacity available errors. Paying customers were locked out, and the model that is supposed to compete with Claude GPT, well, Google couldn't serve it. Now, Google arguably has more infrastructure than anybody else on the planet, and even they can't keep up with the demand. And I think this tells you something much bigger about where the industry is heading. It's not just about Google, it's about the structural problem that is going to define the rest of 2026 for everybody. Now, before talking about the rest of the industry, let's stick with Google for a minute. Google was having rate limit issues for everybody, but then it got worse. Google started banning users. Varun Mohan, who leads the anti-gravity at Google, posted on X saying they had seen and I quote, massive increase in malicious usage of anti-gravity backend that has tremendously degraded the quality of service for our users. And he said, I quote, we have limited capacity and want to be fair to our actual users. Now, what had happened was that OpenClaw users have been connecting to Google's anti-gravity backend through their subscription, and the token consumption from those autonomous agents overwhelmed the system. Same has happened with Cloud Code in the past. Peter Steinberg called it draconian and said he would probably remove anti-gravity support entirely from OpenClaw. Now, Google, I think, has unbanned some people, but one thing which I want to highlight, which people don't talk much about it, is that it's not just compute constraints for Google. A company like Google has a lot more to lose here, maybe than any other provider. So when you're Google, you're not just an AI company. You have search, Gmail, Workspace, Android, and more. Now imagine this, one bad headline in news can really rapture your reputation. So if an AI agent running on your backend does something harmful, say if it's an OpenClaw, the news articles are probably going to be referring it to a Google agent, not OpenClaw agent. So some of these AI first companies like OpenAI or Anthropic can potentially afford that reputational damage. Google has to be more careful because the blast radius is much bigger here. Now, there is another dimension to this that makes Google's situation even more revealing. When you think about Anthropic or OpenAI, when they launch a product, they are mostly serving it on three different surfaces, usually Claude.ai, Claude Code, and the API for Anthropic. OpenAI has Codex, ChatGPT, and their API. Google, on the other hand, is serving Gemini across the Gemini app, AI Studio, Anti-Gravity, Vortex AI, Gemini CLI, Notebook LM, Google Search is powered by Gemini, and I probably am forgetting a whole bunch of other things. There's Flow, there is Jules. We're talking about 12 plus surfaces. So they have to stretch the capacity across more products than anyone. It seems like it's not enough. If the company with the most compute on earth cannot reliably serve a model launch, what does this tell you about the rest of the industry? So a few days after 3.1 launch, Logan, who leads Google AI Studio at Google DeepMind, posted something on X that I think perfectly captures the situation. He said, I quote, the compute bottleneck is massively underappreciated. I would guess the gap between supply and demand is growing single-digit % every day. In practice, this will be the rate limit on the impact AI is going to have on the economy and the society. Now, what makes this significant is that he's not talking about Google. He's talking about the entire industry. And a leaked Google internal slide that surfaced around the same time stated that the AI compute needs to double every 6 months, and the industry needs the next 1000x in 4 to 5 years. And if you look at the other major providers, the pattern is roughly identical. Anthropic has been dealing with this for months. Developers reported a roughly 60% reduction in what they could actually use on Cloud Code. The Opus 4.5 limits were called the most restrictive since launch. Back in January, Anthropic went further and blocked all third-party tools from using Cloud subscription tokens. We are talking about OpenCode Client, OpenClaw. They were all blocked or shut down overnight. And the reason was straightforward. A $200 or $20 subscription was running autonomous Opus workloads that would cost $1,000 at the API pricing. There simply isn't enough compute to subsidize all flat rate access for agentic usage. And here's what was interesting. OpenAI saw this and went in the complete opposite direction. They explicitly allowed their subscription to be used with third-party tools like OpenClaw. When Anthropic banned OpenClaw, OpenAI response was basically, well, come on over. They even hired Peter Steinberg. So you have this fascinating split where Anthropic and Google are locking down access to preserve compute, and OpenAI is opening up, presumably because they think the ecosystem play is worth the cost. But the underlying pressure is the same for all of them. OpenAI published a blog post literally titled Beyond Rate Limits, where they said usage of Codex and Sora had pushed quote beyond what we originally expected, and they had to build an entire new system combining rate limits with credits because the old ones couldn't handle demand. So let's step back. Google is banning users to protect capacity. Anthropic is blocking third-party tools to stop compute bleeding. OpenAI had to rebuild its entire access system. These are the three biggest AI companies in the world, and they are all hitting the same wall at the same time. So this is not coincidence. It's a structural problem, which is about to get worse for the customer. Okay, so why this is happening and why this is not going to fix itself. So the first thing is to understand is where the compute is going. A couple of years ago, most AI compute went to training models, but that's flipped. According to Deloitte, inference, which is the compute used to actually run these models, has gone from about 1/3 of all compute to roughly 2/3. Now, the bottleneck is no longer the training model, it's serving them. The second thing is that what I would call agentic multiplier. A typical chat interaction might be a few hundred tokens. A coding agent session running autonomously can consume hundreds of thousands or even millions of tokens. There is an academic paper on Open Review which found that coding agents can vary by up to 10x in token consumption. And every major company is shipping agents right now. Now, unfortunately, on the supply side, you would think we would just build more data center. But according to Bain, AI's compute demand is growing at more than twice the rate of Moore's law. And here's the counterintuitive part. US data center construction actually fell last year for the first time since 2020. Despite record demand, the actual capacity under construction went down. And the reason is permitting delays, power shortage, and local opposition. Axios had reported that up to half of the world's planned data center projects for this year could face delays. And then there is the memory problem. The industry is calling it RAM Megadon. DRAM prices soared 75% in a single month. The three companies that make nearly all the world's memory are reallocating production towards AI chips. SK Hynix has told investors that their capacity is essentially sold out for the year. IDC called the shortage unprecedented, and the new fab won't meaningfully impact supply until 2028. Satya Nadella, the CEO of Microsoft, summed it all up on a podcast when he said, and I quote, "The biggest issue we are having now is not compute glut, but its power. It's not a supply issue of chips, it's actually the fact that we don't have warm shells to plug into. So the demand is exploding and the supply takes years to build." Now you need to think about what exactly does this practically mean. I think there are a few things we're going to be seeing that is going to shape the rest of 2026. We are already seeing rate limits. There is going to be potentially a credit system. If the demand is growing by a single-digit % every day, as Logan says, the supply takes years to build. There is no near-term fix. And the only lever these companies have is to control how much each user can consume. Now, second, the hardware landscape is diversifying. You probably remember NVIDIA's deal with Grok for inference. OpenAI has a deal with Cerebras now. There are rumors that Intel is pursuing Sambanova. So we're moving from a world where GPUs handle everything to a world where specialized inference chips become critical. And third, and I think this is the most important point, the real bottleneck for AI is not the model quality anymore. Because we spent years arguing which model is smarter, which benchmark score is higher for which model, right? Now, we're going to still argue about those things, but the thing that is going to determine who wins is not who has the best model. It's who can serve the best model at scale. And the model that scores 95 on a benchmark means nothing if the user can't access it. A good example of this is DeepSeek. When DeepSeek R1 was released, it was a really good model at that point, but DeepSeek couldn't serve the model. There were extreme rate limits, and we probably are going to see same thing happening with other companies as well. Now, interestingly enough, every company is saying that agents are the future, which is probably right. We are actually seeing that. But agents consume order of magnitude more compute per session than a chat turn. The industry is shipping the most compute-intensive products that it has ever built while running out of compute to serve them. And the infrastructure to fix this, the power to run this, the memory doesn't arrive in months, it arrives in years. We're talking 2028 to 2030 before new capacity meaningfully catches up. So the question is not whether AI models will keep getting better. They will. We are seeing the trend. The question is whether anyone can actually serve them at scale moving forward. And right now, the answer from every major provider, including the ones with the most compute demand, is not always. Anyways, I hope you found this video useful. Thanks for watching. And as always, I'll see you in the next one.